The Last Beltane Heir, Book 1, a co-author corner original mythic folk mystery. A story to celebrate Earth Day and to honor Beltane, the turning of the season. Prologue. The season of fire and blossom. In the old seasons, when the mist still carried stories and foxes ran bright as embers, the world's heart beat to a different rhythm. It was a rhythm older than language, older than the first stone raised on the moor, older than the memory of humans themselves. A rhythm woven through root and river, through heather and hill, through the quiet pulse of the earth beneath bare feet. A season of fire, a season of blossom, a season of rebirth for the planet itself. In those days, the veil between realms was thin as breath. Foxes slipped through the heather like living flame, their paws whispering over moss, their eyes reflecting secrets older than dawn. When danger neared, they rang the foxglove bells, tiny purple chimes swaying on slender stems, each blossom a warning taught to them by the fair folk. The hawthorn trees bloomed in great white clouds, each blossom a promise, each thorn a guardian. Their roots held the memory of every Beltane fire ever lit, every song ever sung, every joy ever offered to the land. And on the first night of May, the season of fire and blossom, humans gathered on the hillsides. They lit twin fires to bless their cattle and their children. They danced barefoot in the dew. They braided hawthorn blossoms into their hair. They laughed until the night itself seemed to glow. And the land listened. For joy is a kind of magic, older than any spell, stronger than any charm. It fed the hawthorn. It steadied the veil. It kept the fair folk honest and the mortal world alive. But joy is fragile, belief even more so. When humans forgot the old ways, the fires dimmed. When they chose convenience over care, the hawthorn weakened. When they stopped dancing, the foxglove bells rang unanswered, and the veil thinned in the wrong direction. In the quiet that followed, something ancient stirred. A hunger, a shadow, a whisper of corruption carried through the roots of the hawthorn. A prophecy rose with it, soft as moss, sharp as thorn. When the last heir of Beltane hears the foxglove bells, the land will choose again. But prophecies wait, and the land is patient. It remembers every footstep, every fire, every fox that ever rang a bell in the dark, every promise kept and broken. Broken and kept. And it remembers the child with spring green eyes, the first in generations to carry the old light, the one the foxes dream of, the one the hawthorn leans toward, the one the land has not forgotten, the one who will wake the world. Chapter 1. Where the Hawthorn Stung Him. The hearth was the warmest place in Beltane Manor, but Calin had never felt smaller than when he sat beside it. The fire crackled softly, throwing gold across the stone walls, and outside, the mist pressed against the windows like a creature trying to listen in. It was the kind of night the land remembered, but Malcolm Beltane did not. He sat in his great leather chair, the one that smelled faintly of oil and old cigars, swirling amber in a glass he never let Calin touch. His silhouette flickered in the firelight, sharp and polished, like a man carved from the very legacy he worshipped. This was the only night of the year he told the story, not because he loved his son, not because he believed the tale, but because tradition demanded it, and Malcolm Beltane never failed tradition, only people. Kalen perched on the edge of the chair's arm, small legs dangling, trying not to swing his feet. He wanted to be good tonight, wanted to be still, wanted to be the kind of boy his father might look at with something warmer than obligation. Morven, Kalen's nanny, sat nearby mending the tear in Kalen's jeans from climbing the rowan tree that afternoon. Her needle moved with the steady rhythm of someone who had mended more than cloth in her lifetime. She hummed under her breath, a tune older than the manor, older than Malcolm's empire, older than the curse that had taken Rowan Beltane from the world the night Kalen was born. Malcolm cleared his throat, the sound sharp enough to cut the humming in half. Long ago, he began, a voice smooth as polished stone, our family was blessed by a fairy, a noble one, Allian Beltane, who loved a mortal woman so dearly he chose to stay in our world. Kalen mouthed the words along with him. He knew every line. He loved every line. Not because of the fairy, but because this was the only time Malcolm's voice softened in his direction. But even at 6, Kalen could feel something off in the story. Something hollow. Something that didn't fit the way the land felt when Morven took him to the Beltane festival earlier that day. The twin fires blazing, the hawthorn blossoms drifting like snow, the foxglove bells chiming in the wind. A sound Kalen swore he could hear clear as breath. Morvenala smiled at him then, brushing his hair back and whispering, "That's your fairy blood, Macree. Some ears still remember." Malcolm's story had no wind, no fire, no breath, no truth. Just legacy. Just the Beltane Oil Company, wrapped in myth like a ribbon around a rusted pipe. Malcolm continued, unaware of the way Kalen's attention drifted toward Morven's humming, toward the memory of the foxglove bells, toward the warmth of the festival fire still glowing behind his ribs. Allian's magic protected our line, Malcolm said, lifting his glass as if toasting the past. It brought prosperity. It built everything you see around you. Kalen looked around the room. The polished floors, the heavy curtains, the portraits of stern-faced ancestors who all looked like they'd never danced a day in their lives. He didn't see magic. He saw weight. Of course, Malcolm added lightly, the fairy realm closed itself off long ago. Nothing to do with us, just old stories fading away. Morven's needle paused, just a heartbeat, just long enough for Kalen to notice. He turned toward her, her eyes gray as sea mist met his. There was something in them he didn't understand. Something sad, something ancient, something that made him feel seen in a way his father never managed. "Da," Kalen asked softly, "if Allian loved the festival so much, why did he stop dancing?" Malcolm blinked, thrown off script. His jaw tightened before he forced a smile back onto his face. "Well," he said, clearing his throat, "people grow up. They stop believing in such things." Morven's needle stilled completely. Malcolm set his glass down with a soft clink. "You're too much like your mother." He said it as if it were a flaw. "Always asking questions. Always dreaming." Kalen didn't know why that hurt. He only knew Malcolm's voice changed when he said "your mother." Like the word tasted bitter. "That's enough stories for tonight," Malcolm said, standing. "Off to bed with you." Kalen slid off the chair, but before he left the room, he glanced back at Morven. She was watching him with an expression he would only understand years later. A mixture of hope, sorrow, and something like recognition. As he padded down the hall toward his room, the fire popped behind him. A spark leapt up the chimney, and his dreams that night, Kalen saw, foxes running through heather like streaks of living flame, hawthorn blossoms drifting like snow, foxglove bells swaying in the wind he could not feel. A dream that would return, a dream waiting to wake, a dream the land whispered to him, into him, thorn first. Chapter 2. The Day the Bells Returned. The hill looked smaller than he remembered. Caitlin stood at its base, boots sinking into soil that should have been spring soft, but felt dry beneath the surface, like something had stolen the moisture from underneath. The wind carried no stories. The mist clung low to the ground, heavy and tired, as if it had forgotten how to rise. Morven climbed the last few steps beside him, breath steady, but slower than it used to be. Her hair, once dark as wet bark, had silvered into something like moonlit moss. She leaned on her walking stick, rowan wood, polished smooth by decades of use, and looked up at the hill with a sadness Caitlin felt in his ribs. "This place used to sing," she murmured. Caitlin swallowed. "I know." He had been gone 4 years, long enough to earn his degree, long enough to study soil chemistry, native plant restoration, atmospheric patterns, long enough to learn the science behind what his bones had always known, long enough to see the numbers that told the same story the land whispered: rising temperatures, declining pollinators, soil carbon loss, drought creeping north, fox populations thinning. Long enough to understand that the Beltane Oil Company, his father's empire, was part of the wound. He had come home because Morven asked him to, because she said the hill felt wrong, because she said the hawthorn was sick. Now he saw it. The great hawthorn that once crowned the hill like a guardian stood brittle and sparse, its blossoms few and pale. The bark was cracked, the leaves curled at the edges. A fungal blight clung to the lower branches, one Caitlin recognized from his coursework, a pathogen spreading faster each year as warmer winters failed to kill it off. He touched a leaf gently. It crumbled between his fingers. Morven watched him. "It started 2 summers ago. The soil's been changing." He nodded. "Temperature shifts, less winter chill, more stress on the roots." But that wasn't all. He could feel something else, something deeper, older, quieter, a kind of grief. He stepped closer to the tree, the wind brushing past him like a breath that didn't quite know where to go. The foxglove that once grew in thick purple clusters around the base now appeared in thin scattered stalks. Their bells hung limp, color washed out. He remembered them bright as amethyst. He remembered them singing. Morven rested a hand on his shoulder. "Your eyes are the same as the day you left," she said softly. "Green as aliens, green as the old stories." Caitlin looked away. "Dad never noticed." "He never looked," she corrected. He didn't argue. They stood in silence for a long moment, the kind that felt like the land was listening. Caitlin closed his eyes and inhaled. The air tasted different, metallic, faintly chemical, the way it did near the pipeline stations. He knew the Beltane Oil Company had expanded operations while he was away. He had seen the satellite images. He had read the reports. He had tried to talk to Malcolm about it. Malcolm had called him dramatic, said the company was transitioning to greener practices, said the PR team had it handled, said the land would be fine. But the land was not fine. Caitlin opened his eyes, and that was when he heard it, a single, soft chime. High, clear, impossible. He froze. Another chime followed, delicate, trembling, like a bell rung by a fingertip. Morven looked up sharply. "What is it?" Kalen didn't answer. He couldn't. The foxglove bells were ringing. Not in memory, not in dream, not in the half-imagined way they had when he was a child. They were ringing now. He turned slowly toward the sound. The foxglove stalks were still. No wind moved them. No creature brushed past them. But the bells chimed again, a soft, crystalline note that vibrated through his chest like a heartbeat he had forgotten. Morven stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "Kalen, what do you hear?" He swallowed hard. "The bells." Her breath caught. She didn't ask which bells. She didn't need to. The foxglove chimed again, louder this time, as if calling him by name. Kalen felt the world tilt, not physically, but in the way a story shifts when the truth finally steps into the room. The mist lifted slightly. The air warmed. The hawthorn leaves trembled. Morva's hand found his. "It's starting," she whispered. Kalen stared at the foxglove, heart pounding, the sound echoing through him like a memory waking up. "What is?" he asked, though he already knew. Morven squeezed his hand. "The prophecy," she said. "The land has chosen again." And Kalen, the boy who heard the bells, no one else could. The man with Alien's eyes, the child of two myths, felt the hawthorn sting in his chest, sharp and certain. The bells had returned, and they were ringing for him. Chapter 3. The Fox in the Mist. The mist thickened as Kalen stepped closer to the hawthorn, the air cooling against his skin. The foxglove bells had fallen silent again, but the echo of their chime still trembled in his bones. Morven stood a few paces behind him, her hand resting on a rowan stick. Eyes narrowed toward the tree line. Something moved there. A ripple, a flicker, a breath of color too warm for the gray morning. Kalen squinted. "Did you see?" Morven lifted a hand. "Don't move." The ferns at the edge of the hill parted with a soft whisper, and a fox stepped out. Its fur glowed like embers banked under ash, each movement sending ripples of firelight through its coat. Its eyes were bright green, not the green of leaves, but the green of deep forest magic, the green of old stories, the green of something that remembered him. Kalen's breath caught. The fox took one step forward, then another. The ferns brushed its sides, releasing the scent of crushed green and damp earth. The mist curled around its legs like a living thing. A foxglove bell hung tangled in its tail, trembling with each step. And on its flank, a wound. A deep one. A hawthorn embedded in the flesh, dark with dried blood. Kalen's stomach twisted. "You were hurt." The fox tilted its head. As if amused, he thought it didn't know. "The guardian. He smells like her. Like Rowan. Like the one before her. Like the one before that. But more than that. He smells like Alien." The fox steps closer, ferns brushing his whiskers, their fronds cool and wet against his face. The boy, no, the man now, stands very still. Good. Stillness is safety. Stillness is listening. The foxglove bell at his tail trembles. He rings it once. A soft chime, a call meant for the good fairies. But they do not come. They have not come in years. Too few foxes left to ring the bells. Too much noise in the world. Too much metal. Too much heat. too much, forgetting. But the boy hears. He has always heard. The fox steps closer, close enough to feel the warmth of Kalen's breath. The thorn in his flank burns, but he does not flinch. Pain is part of the duty. Pain is part of the vow. He bows his head. The boy must see. The boy must understand. The boy must wake. The fox lowered itself until its nose nearly touched Kalen's boot. Kalen froze, heart pounding so hard he felt it in his fingertips. "Morven," he whispered. "I see him," she murmured. "Don't be afraid." But Kalen wasn't afraid. He was recognized. The fox lifted its head and nudged its flank toward him, revealing the thorn. A long, blackened hawthorn spike, thicker than any natural thorn should be, its tip stained with something that shimmered faintly in the mist. Kalen reached out without thinking. The fox didn't move. His fingers brushed the thorn, and a jolt shot through him, sharp and cold, like winter wind slicing through bone. Images flashed behind his eyes. Foxes running through heather, bells ringing in the dark, shadows slipping between trees, thorns falling like rain, and a veil thinning, thinning, thinning. Kalen gasped and stumbled back. The fox watched him with an ancient patience. What was that?" Kalen whispered. Morven stepped closer, her voice low. "The truth trying to reach you." Kalen shook his head. "I don't understand." "You will," she said softly, "but not all at once." The fox took a step back, then another, retreating into the ferns. The fronds brushed Kalen's legs as if urging him forward, urging him to follow, urging him to see. But the fox stopped at the edge of the mist and turned once more. Its eyes glowed. It rang the bell, a single, clear note, a call meant for the good fairies, a call only Kalen could hear. Then it vanished into the mist. Kalen stood trembling, the echo of the bell vibrating through his ribs. "Morven," he whispered, "why me?" Morven's eyes softened with a sorrow older than her years. "Because the good fairies cannot hear the bells anymore," she said. "Because the foxes are dying. Because the veil is thinning. Because the wrong ones have slipped through." She touched his cheek gently. "And because you, Kalen Beltane, are the only one left who can hear the call." The mist curled around them like a breath. The bells chimed again, faint, distant, urgent. And Kalen finally understood. He wasn't imagining it. He wasn't dreaming. He wasn't cursed. He was chosen. Chapter 4. The Truth in the Rowan Trunk. Morven lit only one lamp. The room glowed soft and amber, shadows pulling in the corners like sleeping animals. Kalen sat on the edge of the old rowan wood trunk, the one Morven had kept locked his entire childhood, and felt the air shift around him. The fox's bell still echoed faintly in his ribs, a vibration he couldn't shake. Morven closed the door behind them. "Before I tell you anything," she said, voice low, "you must promise to listen with your whole self, not just your mind." Galen nodded, though his heart hammered. Morven studied him for a long moment, as if searching his face for something she hoped to find. Then she crossed the room, knelt beside the trunk, and pressed her palm to the lid. The wood shivered. A soft click, a breath of old air. The trunk opened. Inside lay a rowanwood pendant, a bundle of dried hawthorn blossoms, A foxglove bell, perfectly preserved, a strip of cloth embroidered with symbols Kalen didn't recognize, and a small cracked mirror. Morven lifted the mirror first. "This," she said, "is where we begin." She held it toward him. The glass was old, warped, its surface rippling like water. Kalen leaned in, and for a heartbeat, he didn't see his own reflection. He saw green fire. He saw fox eyes. He saw a veil of mist parting. He saw a figure with his eyes, but not his face. He jerked back. "What?" Morven set the mirror gently on the trunk. "My family," she said, "has served yours since the day Allie and Beltane crossed the veil." Kalen's breath caught. Morven continued, her voice steady, ancient. "We were touched by the fair folk long before that. Not blessed, not cursed, marked. We were given the sight, the ability to see the veil between worlds, to know when it thins, to know when danger slips through." She touched the foxglove bell reverently. "But we were forbidden to cross it, forbidden to speak through it, forbidden to interfere with the fair folk's choices. Our duty was simple: protect the Beltane line from the truth of what they are." Kalen stared at her. "What are we?" Morven's eyes softened. "Fair folk, Kalen. Not fully, not like Allian, but touched by him, changed by him. Every Beltane child carries a spark of the other world." Kalen shook his head. "Dad never—" "Your father never looked," Morven said gently. "He never wanted to see. The greed took Allian in the end, and it took every Beltane after him. The forgetting was their shield, their curse." She lifted the Rowan pendant. "This was the spell, my family's vow. As long as a Rowan woman served a Beltane child, the truth would stay hidden. The fairy blood would sleep. The veil would remain closed to you." Kalen felt the room tilt. "Then why do I?" "Because you left," Morven whispered. "And when you left, the spell broke. You stepped beyond the reach of our protection. You learned the land. You learned the science. You learned to listen." She touched his cheek the same way she had when he was small. "And now the foxes have called you. They would not do that unless the veil was failing, unless the wrong fair folk had slipped through, unless the land needed you awake." Kalen swallowed hard. "Morven, am I—" "You are fair folk," she said softly. "Not in body, in blood, in breath, in the way the world speaks to you." The foxglove bell trembled in the trunk. Morven lifted it. "When you were born," she said, "the foxes rang the bells for 3 nights. They knew what you were. They knew what you would become." Kalen felt something inside him crack open. A memory, a sound, a truth. The bells, the dreams, the foxes, the hawthorn sting, the way the land breathed when he walked it. All of it. Morven took his hands in hers. "You are the first Beltane in generations to hear the bells," she said. "The first to see the foxes. The first to feel the veil." Her voice trembled. "And the first who might save it." Kalen closed his eyes. And for the first time in his life, he didn't feel strange. He didn't feel wrong. He didn't feel out of place. He felt true. When he opened his eyes, the mirror no longer showed green fire. It showed him. But not the him he had always known. The him the land had been waiting for. Chapter 5. The Day the Town Remembered. The morning after the fox appeared, Kalen woke with the sound of bells still trembling in his bones. Not loud, not urgent, just present, like a heartbeat he had finally learned to hear. He dressed quickly, pulling on boots still damp from the mist, and stepped outside. The air tasted different today, sharper, metallic at the edges, like the world was holding its breath. Morven waited by the gate, her rowan stick in hand. "You feel it," she said. Kalen nodded. "The veil, and the ones who slipped through." He swallowed. "I saw something last night, in the trees. Eyes too tall for a fox, too thin for a deer." Morven's face tightened. "The bad ones. The hungry ones. They've been crossing for years, but the foxes kept them at bay. Now there are too few foxes left." Kalen looked toward the hill. "We have to fix it." Morven's gaze softened. "I? And you know how?" He did. "The festival. The fires. The dancing. And joy that fed the land. The ritual that kept the veil strong. The celebration that humans abandoned." The Beltane festival had gone undone for years, reduced to a corporate-sponsored event with plastic banners and photo ops. No fire, no hawthorn, no magic. But Kalen remembered the real one, the one Morven took him to, the one that made the land breathe. "We bring it back," he said. "Properly." Morven smiled. "Good lad." They walked into town together, and Kalen saw them everywhere now. Thin shadows slipping between buildings, eyes glinting from gutters, shapes perched on rooftops. Figures too still to be human, silhouettes with thorn blade fingers. No one else noticed. A woman walked her dog right past one, a tall, spindly creature crouched behind a mailbox, its mouth full of teeth like broken glass. The dog whimpered, but the woman tugged the leash, oblivious. Kalen's stomach twisted. "They feed on what we ignore," Morven murmured. "On apathy, on destruction, on the choices humans make without thinking." "And the foxes?" Kalen asked. "Dying," she whispered. "Hunted, outnumbered." A shadow darted across the street, fast, sharp, and wrong. Kalen flinched. Morven touched his arm. "You see them now because the spell is broken, because you are awake." He nodded, breath unsteady. "And because," she added softly, "you are fair folk." Kalen stood in the center of town, heart pounding. "We bring back Beltane," he said. "The real one. Fires, dancing, community, joy, all of it." Morven nodded. "And Primrose." Kalen blinked. "Primrose?" "Aye, Mayflower. The old protection. Hawthorn is too weak this year. Primrose will push the bad ones back across the veil." He looked around at the town, tired, gray, worn thin by years of economic struggle and environmental decline. "We'll need help," he said. Morven smiled. "Then ask." Kalen went door to door. He spoke to the baker, the school teacher, the mechanic, the florist, the mayor, the teenagers who hung out behind the grocery store. He told them the truth, not the fairy truth, but the land is sick, the soil is dying, the foxes are disappearing, and the festival matters. Community matters. Joy matters. Connection matters. He spoke with the fire of someone who had seen the world from both sides, the scientific and the mythic, and understood they were the same story. People listened. People believed. People remembered. By afternoon, the town was alive. Children weaving primrose garlands, elders teaching old songs, teenagers painting banners, shopkeepers hanging ribbons, families gathering wood for their fires, neighbors helping neighbors. The bad fairies hissed from the shadows, shrinking back from the primrose. The good fairies, wherever they were, might finally hear the bells again. Kalen stood outside, the Beltane Oil Company headquarters. the building looming like a monument to everything his father worshipped. He walked inside. Malcolm looked up from his desk, startled. Kalen, what are you? We're changing the company, Kalen said. Today. Malcolm blinked. Excuse me? Sustainable energy, clean technology, community investment, soil restoration, wildlife protection, carbon drawdown, real change, not PR. Malcolm stared at him. You can't just... I can, Kalen said. And I will. The board will listen. The town will listen. The world will listen. Malcolm opened his mouth to argue, but something in Kalen's eyes stopped him. Something green, something ancient, something that remembered. By sunset, the town glowed with primrose and lantern light. Children laughed. Music rose. Fires crackled. The air shimmered. And the veil, thin, trembling, wounded, began to strengthen. Kalen stood at the center of it all, the foxglove bells in his pocket vibrating like a heartbeat. Morven stepped beside him. This, she whispered, is true magic. Not spells, not thorns, not fairy blood. But people choosing to care. People choosing joy. People choosing each other. People choosing the land. Kalen looked around, breath catching. This is how we save both realms, he said. Morven nodded. Aye, this is how. And somewhere, in the distance, soft, faint, hopeful, the foxglove bells rang. Not in warning, but in answer. Epilogue. The quiet after the bells. The fires burned low on the hill, embers glowing like fox eyes in the dark. The primrose garlands fluttered in the night breeze, their pale petals catching the last of the lantern light. The town had gone quiet, tired, joyful, and changed. Kalen stood alone at the edge of the hill, the foxglove bell warm in his palm. The veil felt steady again, not healed, not fully, but steadier, breathing, listening. Morven's words echoed in him. True magic lives in the choices we make together. He looked out over the town, the people who had shown up, who had danced, who had laughed, who had remembered what it meant to care for the land beneath their feet, the people who had made the veil strong again without ever knowing they had. Maybe that was the point. Maybe magic had never been about fairies at all. Maybe it had always been about the invisible truth woven through every life, that one action creates a ripple, and the kind of ripples we leave behind are up to us. He closed his eyes and breathed in the night. Maybe flowers don't hold magic. Maybe they never did. Maybe traditions are just stories meant to teach us how to see the world more clearly. Maybe festivals are reminders to gather, to celebrate, to protect what matters. Maybe primrose is just a flower. But flowers bring color to the world, and color brings people together, and people together can change everything. A soft breeze brushed past him. Somewhere in the dark, a fox moved through the ferns, silent, unseen, watching. Kalen smiled. Maybe fairies never existed, he whispered. He whispered to the night. Maybe the stories were just stories. The wind shifted. A single foxglove bell chimed, clear, bright, impossible. Kalen's breath caught. He looked toward the sound, heart thudding, eyes searching the mist. Nothing moved. Nothing stirred. Just the night. Just the wind. Just the world breathing. He laughed softly, shaking his head. Or maybe, he said, voice barely above a whisper, just maybe, you hear the foxgloves in the wind too. The bell chimed again, and the veil, quiet, steady, alive, held. The end. Thank you for celebrating Beltane with me tonight, for stepping into the firelight, the story, and the turning of the season. I hope this summer brings you adventure on the page and off, in all the ways you need it. So stay creative, stay curious, and always trust your toots.